The nameplate read "Witness," etched in brass, polished like ego. Below it, in all caps, Donald J. Trump. He sat in the witness chair like a man who believed the room still belonged to him. Tie sharp, chin lifted, smile cocky and crimson. But that was before she entered. Not walked in, entered, like a verdict about to be delivered. Jasmine Crockett. The door hadn't even closed when the air changed. Reporters fell silent. Staffers froze. And Trump, he looked up. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. She simply moved forward, slow, steady, sure. Wearing black, not the color of mourning, but the black you wear when you've come to bury illusions. She sat. No fidgeting, no mic check, no greetings, just stillness. As if the silence itself had been waiting for her to arrive. Then, without drama, without a word, Jasmine reached for a black folder. No seal, no gold trim, just paper. She pulled out one single page, folded once, and placed it gently face down on the desk. Then folded her hands, and whispered, "Mr. Trump, you've claimed no payments were made. You denied knowing about any settlements." A pause. Then she flipped the page. "So you won't mind what we play next." The entire room did not gasp, it tightened, like a collective lung holding its breath. In just 49 seconds, $130,000 of silence started to burn. And the most powerful man in America forgot how to lie. She was never supposed to be remembered. Not in headlines, not in history, and definitely not in a courtroom with red microphones and blinking cameras. Stormy Daniels. Not just a stage name, not just a woman in a hotel suite, but a voice paid to vanish. $130,000. That was the price to bury a secret, to erase a moment, to buy silence like it was just another line item on a campaign budget. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't here to bury it. She came to exhume it. The black folder opened again. Routing numbers, bank seals, Michael Cohen's signature like a ghost from 2016. And one name in bold, Stephanie Clifford. The real name behind the mask. The woman America almost forgot. Almost. Trump's smirk faltered for just a second, and Jasmine said it plainly. This isn't about her body. This is about what happened after. After the cameras. After the hotel. After he chose to pay her off instead of telling the truth. Because silence in his world was never sacred. It was strategic. And for years it worked, until now. Until one woman pulled the lid off the coffin and showed America what was really buried inside. And as the evidence piled higher, someone in the gallery whispered the line no one dared say out loud. This isn't a hearing, it's an execution. You can't understand what Jasmine Crockett did in that hearing until you understand where she came from. She was born into a country that teaches black women one rule above all: don't make noise. Be polite. Be quiet. Be grateful for crumbs. Don't talk too loud. Don't take up too much space. Don't make powerful men uncomfortable. That's how Jasmine grew up. Not invisible, but trained to fade. In school, she was the smartest in the room, but teachers still praised the boys for speaking up. In college, she crushed every class, but was told she was too assertive in group projects. In law school, she won every argument, but learned to lower her voice so no one would call her aggressive. So Jasmine didn't shout. She watched. She remembered. She built her strength in silence. Not because she wanted to be quiet, but because no one wanted to hear her. And when you spend enough time being erased, you start to sharpen yourself for the day they can't ignore you anymore. She didn't rise with fame, she rose with fire. Not the kind that burns down buildings, but the kind that lights courtrooms and scares liars. Jasmine isn't angry, she's done. And when a woman is done, she doesn't beg, she becomes the reckoning. He thought it would be like every other time. Another hearing, another microphone, another woman he could out-talk, out-smirk, outlast. He was used to the rhythm smile, deny, attack, repeat. So when Jasmine Crockett walked in, he didn't brace himself. He smirked. That trademark smirk. The one that launched headlines and memes. The one that said, "I've survived worse." But then their eyes met. Jasmine didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She just stared as if his entire empire was something she could measure and dismantle with a single glance. For a moment, Trump held that smirk like armor. But armor only works when no one sees the crack. And Jasmine, she saw everything. The curve of his grin didn't fade. It froze. Just enough to catch, just enough to show the shift. Because for the first time in that room, he wasn't the predator. He was the prey. And the hunter wasn't angry, wasn't loud. She was calm, focused, and walking straight toward him. The folder wasn't flashy. No golden seal, no red ribbon. Just black, matte, heavy. The kind of black that didn't ask for attention because it already knew it would get it. Jasmine placed it gently on the table, didn't slam it, didn't pose, just opened it like a surgeon ready to cut. One document, then another, then another. Bank logos, routing numbers, wire transfers. And names so carefully typed they looked like they were trying to hide in plain sight. Trump leaned back in his chair, still smirking, still pretending he was in control. Still acting like this was just political theater. But Jasmine didn't look at him. She looked at the paper, her voice calm, precise. Routing number 072000096. Transfer from Essential Consultants LLC to Stephanie Clifford. Timestamp October 27, 2016. Amount $130,000. Trump blinked once. Then she said it, Stormy Daniels, or as your team labeled her, Liability 02. The air shifted, not with gasps, with pressure. Trump's smirk twitched. His jaw moved, but no words came out, because now it was on the record. Not gossip, not rumor, not speculation. A document, filed, tracked, signed. And in Jasmine's hands, that black folder may as well have been a loaded weapon. She paused, not for drama, not for effect, but for clarity. Then Jasmine said it, slow, deliberate, unmistakable. This isn't about her body, it's about what happened after. The room didn't shift, it sank. Because in just 12 words, she took us from scandal to system. From a hotel room to a network of NDAs, lawyers, campaign funds, and silence bought wholesale. This wasn't a mistake, it was a method. Stormy Daniels wasn't the story. She was the warning sign, flashing, ignored, paid off, and filed under liability. Trump didn't pay her because she lied. He paid her because she might talk. Because if she talked, others might too, and if they talked, he wouldn't survive it. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She had truth, and truth, when spoken clearly, doesn't shout. It strips power bare. And in that moment, you could feel it. The room wasn't protecting him anymore. It was watching him unravel. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't flash more evidence. She just told a story. She was 25. A waitress at a chain restaurant in Dallas, worked double shifts, still brought home less than minimum wage after taxes. Her voice stayed even, but the room leaned in. One night after closing, a city councilman followed her into the alley behind the kitchen, put his hand on her waist, told her she should be grateful someone important noticed her. Jasmine paused, not because she didn't know the next line, but because everyone else needed a second to catch up. She reported him the next morning. By lunch, she was fired. No paperwork, no warning, just a message from HR. She had violated professional decorum. There were no headlines, no interviews, no settlement, no lawyer. She didn't get justice. She didn't even get a hearing. She got silence. And that silence, it wasn't peaceful. It was brutal, permanent, deliberate. How many women like her? How many stories never left the back alley, never reached a courtroom, never reached a microphone, never reached anyone? How many were erased not by threats, but by policy, by routine, by people too comfortable to care? The hearing wasn't about Trump anymore. It was about the system that let him multiply. Jasmine didn't yell. She didn't cry. She read. Statement A, 14, anonymous, dated October 11th. He liked the fear. It made him feel real. The room went still. Statement B, 22. He said if I told anyone, no one would believe me, because he was the president and I was just a cocktail waitress. No names, no faces, but every word bled. These weren't just testimonies. They were trauma etched in ink. One by one, Jasmine laid the papers out on the desk, not stacked, spread like evidence at a crime scene. Statement D07. I didn't want money. I just wanted to sleep without waking up screaming. Trump shifted, first in his chair, then in his face. He glanced at his lawyer, then back at the desk. His fingers twitched just once. It wasn't fear, not yet. It was recognition. Because these voices, he knew them. He had heard them before they were silenced. Jasmine looked up, voice steady. You don't need to know their names. You already know their stories. You were part of them. She wasn't attacking. She was excavating. Digging up every whisper that was buried in payoff and shame. And with each page, the courtroom grew heavier, not with noise, but with truth. The chamber was already heavy, but now it cracked. Jasmine lifted one page. Not a statement, not a rumor, an email from Ivanka Trump, time-stamped, routed through Trump.org servers. Subject line, Urgent, Nevada. She read aloud, clear and slow. Dad, pay off the problem before Nevada. We can't survive another leak. Gasps. Chairs shifted. One pen hit the floor and wasn't picked up. Trump blinked. Once. Then leaned forward. Fake. I've never seen that email before. Jasmine didn't flinch. You don't need to see it, Mr. Trump. You sent it, or authorized it, because metadata speaks louder than denial. She tapped the paper gently, no grand gesture, just enough to say, this is real. Server path internal.trumporg.secure. Origin IP matches your Palm Beach residence. Geotime sync with your calendar, which had you off record that night. Trump opened his mouth, closed it. He looked to his lawyer. Nothing came. Jasmine leaned in. This isn't about gossip. This is digital truth, encrypted, archived, and now subpoenaed. The marble walls didn't echo. They absorbed the weight. Because this wasn't just evidence. This was a crack in the armor, and it came from within the family. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Because what she placed on the desk next was a memo. Not a leaked email, not a rumor, a printed directive, marked Confidential Internal Use Only. Title, Legal Containment Protocol, Media Response Strategy for Allegation Scenarios. And then, a signature, etched in black ink, bold, recognizable, Donald J. Trump. The room didn't gasp this time. It held its breath. Jasmine didn't narrate it. She let the words speak for themselves. Engage legal team preemptively. Coordinate NDA rollout. Deploy surrogate interviews. Media narrative must remain unfounded claims by publicity seekers. The memo was dated 2 weeks before the Stormy Daniels payment. Jasmine ran her finger under one final line. If necessary, classify payout as private expense to bypass FEC reporting. Trump's face locked. Not blank defensive. He shifted his shoulders like a boxer realizing he stepped into the wrong ring. His lawyer objected again. This document was never authenticated. Jasmine replied softly, "It was, by the Department of Justice, last Friday." No one laughed now. "This isn't about a one-night scandal," she continued. "This memo proves they planned the silence, funded it, and signed it. It wasn't a scandal, it was a system, and it carried the president's name." The screen flickered. Not on a phone, not on a website, but on a congressional monitor in a hearing room built for power and now hijacked by truth. Jasmine didn't introduce the video. She didn't need to. "I never wanted hush money," Stormy Daniels said, eyes locked into the camera. "I just wanted someone to believe me." No tears, no rage, just that look, the one people wear when they've stopped screaming and started surviving. She didn't mention Trump, didn't mention what happened in that suite. She didn't have to. Because the silence between her words said everything the money was meant to hide. One Republican aide stood up, knocked over his chair, and left the room. But the screen stayed on. Stormy's voice didn't shake. "They didn't pay me to protect him. They paid me to disappear." She took a breath. "I thought if I stayed quiet, maybe it would go away. But it never does. It just spreads." Jasmine didn't look at the screen. She looked at the panel. She wanted them to watch, to hear, to feel what $130,000 tried to erase. It wasn't about revenge. It was about belief. And it had come too late. They didn't arrive all at once. They came slowly, like healing always does. Handwritten, folded, stamped with trembling hands from places like Tulsa, Savannah, Toledo. Some were single pages, others were 10. "I was 19 when it happened. I never told anyone, until today." Her staff started reading them in silence. No one asked them to write. They just did. Some were anonymous. Some had names written in cursive that had forgotten how to be proud. The wall behind Jasmine's desk began to fill. Not with certificates, but with pain. He was my coach, my stepfather, a senator. Jasmine didn't respond with tweets. She responded with thumbtacks. Each letter pinned to the wall like a scar that no longer needed hiding. The office, once quiet, now pulsed with truth. Interns walked slower. Staffers stayed later. It became more than a workspace. It became a memorial and a beginning. These letters weren't just trauma. They were testimony. Proof that when one woman dares to speak, 1,000 others remember how. The vote was scheduled for 10 a.m., but they came early, quietly, one by one. The same lawmakers who once rolled their eyes, who called it political theater, now lowered their heads and signed. No press conference, no podium speeches. Just the sound of pens hitting paper and the heavy silence that followed. The final tally lit up 226 green lights, 198 red. And for a brief moment, no one moved. No applause, no cheers. Just the soft clicking of a chamber door closing, and the faintest sound like a nation finally letting go of a breath it had held far too long. The Silence Act had passed. It wouldn't erase what had happened, but it would make it harder to hide it again. Every NDAs involving abuse and public funds void. Every future hush payment tied to government campaigns illegal. Jasmine didn't smile. She didn't pose for cameras. She just whispered, "It's a start," and walked out the same way she entered, not like a victor, like a woman who had promised not to flinch. Jasmine didn't celebrate. no cameras, no champagne, no speeches. She just walked out of the Capitol into the night. And waiting for her not protest, but candles, hundreds of them, held by nurses, teachers, veterans, mothers, survivors, and girls no older than she was when she first learned to stay quiet. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to, because from the sidewalk a small voice broke the hush. "Mama, can I be like her?" A girl no older than 10, holding her mother's hand, eyes fixed on the woman in black who just rewrote the meaning of bravery. The mother didn't answer. She just nodded through tears. And Jasmine finally smiled, not for the cameras, not for the headlines, but for the question, because it meant silence had finally lost. She knelt, met the girl's eyes, and whispered, "You already are." Then she stood, turned back toward the Capitol, and walked away, not into history, but into what comes next. Truth is not always loud. Sometimes it waits, buried beneath silence, shame, or power. But when it finally speaks, when someone brave enough gives it a voice, it shakes the ground. This story reminds us that silence is not peace, that a single voice, steady and honest, can bring an empire to its knees, and that justice doesn't begin in courtrooms. It begins when we refuse to look away. Whether you're a witness, a survivor, or just someone tired of pretending not to see, remember your truth matters. And your voice, it's more powerful than you've been told. If this story moved you, if it made you think, feel, or remember something that matters, don't let it end here. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that expose the truth, challenge power, and defend what's right. Because somewhere, someone needs to hear it. This is more than a video. It's a voice. It's a movement. And you're part of it now. Click subscribe and stand with those who speak when others stay silent.